Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Getting Unstuck with Misfits Unplugged. We are helping highly motivated hustlers achieve success and overcome career hurdles. We are two minority women with a combination of corporate America and street smarts, bringing simplified business concepts to everyone.
If you're feeling stuck in a specific career and you're not really sure how to get to the next level, how to pivot, if you have a career end goal in mind and you really don't know how to bridge a plan around it to get there, then you want to continue to listen to Misfits Unplugged, because we're going to be talking through so many different topics that's going to get you all there.
We are so excited. So I'm Isabel. You can call me Izzy.
I'm Brandy, and you can call me Brandy.
So let's jump on in. So this is episode 3. BK, we made it.
We are 3 of 3.
3 of 3. We are so excited. So obviously you're listening in order because you're our loyal followers at this point.
Yes.
So we told you the last episode that we were going to be taking that ABCDs exercise that we took you through ours. We were raw, transparent, telling you what was the good and bad and ugly of the beginner foundation of us, plus a little bit about where we are now. Yep. So we said this episode, we're going to show you how to take that ABCDs and make them
marketable for you. Yeah, transferable.
We're going to get you a job. No, you're not going to get you a job. We're going to teach you though how to take those skills and go get a job.
Yes, there you go.
So BK, why don't you start us
off?
Take us
through? Yeah. Well, I think first, because we're assuming that you are all our loyal followers and everybody has been listening to us up to now. But if you haven't, I think it's important to at least explain to you what the ABCDs guide is until everybody gets comfortable with the verbiage that Misfits Unplugged uses. So our ABCDs guide is a brainstorming activity to help you think through your assets, blind spots, choices, and destroyers, which are all different elements that make up your personal avatar. So your assets are your high value skills, the skills that are marketable in your industry or about. Your blind spots are your weaknesses or areas that really need some development. Your choices are the opportunities available to you from right where you are in your career or not. And D are your destroyers. So all the distractions that could come about that could possibly keep you from being your best self. So with that being said, let's jump in. So the last time we talked through this, Isabel and I just kind of went through our personal assets, blind spots, choices, and destroyers. And we thought this time that we'd give you a couple of nuggets to help you figure out how to transform some of those things that are not your skills and not your, best opportunities, but maybe your blind spots, which are the areas that require development, and your destroyers, which could be the distraction. So you want to start us off, Isabel, and talk to us about?
So I'm looking over to the left because I have them written down because we already did my OCD. So the last time we talked about my assets was my project management and my problem solving. But I think those are easier. I think that talking through your assets and how to talk that through in an interview is kind of self-explanatory. It's easy to turn those around and say, well, I'm good at this. I think that a nice talking point for ABCDs is like, if you have an asset, explaining like how you got to that place. So I mentioned, I said it again today, but I don't really have OCD, but my the way that I think through, which is okay if you do, because everybody is different. We're all different, right? So all of our different strengths and weaknesses complement some employer. So the way that I think is very analytical. I'm very, systematic, and sometimes how I think. And I've changed that from being a negative into being a positive, because now I'm strategic. I have, I can meet timelines to a fault, right? I'm always 15 minutes early to everything that we go to, which is really annoying, right? Because then everybody and I'm irritated. But I've changed that into when I go to an interview saying, I'm successful at project management, and this is how, I enjoy meeting deadlines because I set that for myself, and then I organize myself to meet those deadlines. So I change something that could be a negative about how systematic sometimes how I am into a positive. And that's how I market myself when I speak to an employer around that. So do you want to throw it back and forth?
Yeah. So I think one of the blind spots that I mentioned in our last podcast was my introversion, and people maybe don't look at that on the surface as something that could be a blind spot, but it is if you work too independently, meaning that you don't always bring people into your circle. So one of the things that I think that I've done over my career that's helped is, with that introversion comes a lot of analytics, which requires deep dives and time alone anyway. Like nobody is crunching numbers with people standing over them or in group sessions kind of thing. So I tend to take my time and use some of that introversion for, projects that require a lot of my focus. But also, just acknowledging the fact that I do, have that. So I tend to, make sure that I reach out to my employees or, to my colleagues, just to say hi, even more so now because it's easier to really go into introversion mode when you're working from home. So it's kind of just like picking up the phone and being like, hey, I'm still here. And to be clear, I am a great collaborator. So it's not, so much of an introversion that, I'm just like really socially awkward. I can be probably at parties, but in terms of just bringing my best self to groups, I think that, people, I would say, probably benefit from my introversion at times. So,
Yeah, I would say that absolutely. So
mhm,
I think successful, if you're in a team, if everyone is a type A extrovert, and we're all
mhm,
talking out loud and you're always the person who is observing the situation and saying,
mhm.
like, let me think out loud, right? That's your
Yeah.
coined phrase. Anyone that knows Brandy, it's let me think out loud. And you always have to, and that's something I always admired about you and I took on into my career is stop, listen, and then come
Mhm,
up with a conclusion versus so quickly moving and
mhm,
formulating thoughts. So that moves us right into our blind spots because that is one of
mhm,
my blind spots is sometimes I move
mhm,
too quickly and I get to a, let's say, resolution or thought quicker than maybe other people. Not that I'm
mhm.
smarter than anyone else, even though sometimes I am, but
Yeah. Her brain works very quickly, people.
But it does. Sometimes I'm listening and I'm like problem solving. It's just something that you do. And I've been doing it naturally, I guess, since I was even a kid. You see something, you think about a resolution, and it translated over into adulthood, my career, who I am as a person. And I own it now.
Mhm,
The only difference is
mhm,
now is the balance of listening to other people and slowing down.
mhm,
So, but actually, before we move on, because we've mentioned that we're going to be showing it as marketable assets. So you mentioned your introversion. If you were in an interview, how would
mhm.
you formulate that into something that makes the employer want to hire you, introvert Brandy?
Well, it's so interesting, and I'm going to grab this really quickly because I tend to keep these kind of things around me, right? Um, I think being an introvert, like I said, gives me a lot um, of focus. In other words, I can focus on, large projects, very complicated tasks, very hairy, what people would consider problems, and really come out of that introversion with, a very efficient resolution, so to speak, if that makes sense. So if I were in a interview, I would probably say that I'm an expert at engineering processes to support efficient operations that lead to scaling.
Brandy really just picked up her resume. So
You can, I'm saying you can't do that all of the time by like the actual process and the tacticalness that requires kind of, requires a little bit of that engineering, so to speak. Generating, analyzing, and reporting on KPIs, KFIs, which impact operations, investments, and hiring decisions. So I am the person, particularly in my current employer, the person that people depend on to give them information in order to make decisions. So it's, part of my job is sort of requires me to kind of go in and, step away and do some independent work and fact finding and fact checking and all that good stuff. So I think that those are two good skills that any, business could use.
So I'm glad that you mentioned KPI. So if we have any newbie managers or recent college graduates out there, they don't talk about this so much in school. You learn it, as a skill of the trade. So KPI is a key performance indicator. This is
Mm-hmm,
information that you would gather, dashboards and reporting. So for example, if you were selling something and you wanted to track how much of something you were selling by region, or if,
mm-hmm,
where process or operations, maybe you wanted to see how much business was on one of your employees versus another, and you want to organize workflow, you can take all of the data, put it together and create averages or turnaround times. And those would be your KPIs, because you would take that and make actionable or steps, it would impact
mm-hmm.
some of the decision that you would make versus making decisions from your gut. You have informed decisions that you can make. So thanks, Brandy, for bringing that up. That's a cool little takeaway for
Little
everyone
nugget.
to jot that down. Not only jotting down all of how you're going to write out your assets in your interview, but also this is something you can say because you might do it and use it. You
Mhm.
just don't know the terminology. So key
Right.
performance indicator, KPI,
There you go.
that. If you don't know how to do it, then stay tuned, because we're going to be creating our master class, which is going to walk you through how
Mm-hmm.
to take all of these processes and learn them. We're going to educate you on them and then put together some awesome templates for you to use.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really good.
And then blind spots. So now we're going to be talking about blind spots. I talked to you a little bit about mine. So blind spots are the ones that you do have to twist and turn to make them into your marketable assets. So I
Mm-hmm.
know that I'm a type A personality. I've mentioned to you about being a go-getter, and sometimes that, may make people overshadowed.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I like to present myself, which you can't really hide who you are, so I like to be transparent. That's my approach when I'm in an interview. So I'll say, hey, I am an outspoken person, but I'm also a team player. I have the
Mm-hmm.
ability to kind of pivot to working independently or within a group. I am an outspoken personality, but I know how to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
And I always talk about how I am open to continuing to learn. And not only am I just saying it, I believe it. Stay
Mm-hmm.
open to learning and growing, because if not, then you're going to become stagnant, because every year or every month there's something new, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
6 months ago. So obviously we're new and we're growing.
Yeah.
So that's how I usually say in an employer. And if they ask me any questions about, usually some employers still ask about 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses, right? So I,
Mm-hmm.
I am guilty
Mm-hmm.
of asking that question. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I will say this is a weakness, but, or this is an area that I'm focused on, but, or I'll
Mm-hmm.
say, you may see this as a weakness, but this is what I see it as instead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
That's
really
really good. That's really good. I mean, that even brings me to think about soft skill versus hard skills, because I tend to think, maybe in those situations where, an employer is asking you that quintessential question, like what is your, you know, weaknesses or whatever the case may be. I tend to make up for those with what I would consider soft skills. So, soft skills would be, being really perceptive. So I think that I'm a good reader of people, which allows me to enter groups and, situations and kind of read it for what it is, and, not be the, super, super loud mouth that's pissing everybody off, but kind of figuring out everybody's personality and working with them accordingly. And hard skills would be something, that's hard. It's something that you walk into the room and people know that you got it. So that could be, leadership, so to speak. So, um, those are two definitions that people may want to keep at the top of their resume list. I've got a bunch of soft skills and a bunch of hard skills. And when you wrap it all together, my avatar is awesome.
Yeah, I remember when a few years ago, and I've done it a couple years, the disc assessment, that math
Yeah.
disc assessment, that it would tell you kind of where
Oh,
you
that's
go on
good.
the
Yeah.
scale. And we could spend a
Mm-hmm.
whole episode talking through that. I mean, we're not paid
Mm-hmm.
sponsors of them, but we'll show you how we used it. But I remember that from 10 years ago to now, if I take it,
Mm-hmm.
I still fall in the same areas, but I kind of maybe pivot a little bit to one side or the other. But basically, this assessment tells you who you are as an employee, who are you as a manager, and it tells you your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you and I did it was pretty interesting because it was kind of spot on.
Yeah.
So I do
Uh-huh.
recommend if so this is DISC, and if
Hmm.
anyone is interested, or DM us if you have any questions after you get your assessment, how to
Hmm.
interpret it, because it's pretty interesting. And I think that our ambition, our goals, and our accountability partnership kind of helped us move where
Yeah.
we are in our career, is continuing to assess where we are on the on track.
And so it was so good that Isabel brought up the disc, because part of the next piece that we're going to go through is our choices, which is the opportunities that are available to us. And I think that, and I could be biased because I'm the introvert, right? I think that self-awareness checks are really, really good, and discs, and there's so many different types of personal skill tests that you can, do online for free that will give you some feedback into your personality, and where you would do the best in group settings and things like that. So, self-awareness and quizzes, our ABCDs guide that makes you have to kind of think through all of this kind of stuff is good too. So, if you're the kind of person like me who's not, start a conversation in the room kind of person, and you enjoy, doing quizzes or writing in diaries. I'm a huge note and diary person, and sometimes I just do a brain dump, once or twice a week to get stuff out of my head. That's a good soft way to start your process of unpacking what opportunities might be available to you in your career.
Yeah, so I've always mentioned to people about choices specifically is about reverse engineering their career path. So what does that mean?
Hmm.
What is the job that you ultimately want to get? So Google is your friend, right? So you go online, or LinkedIn is another one, but I think that Google is pretty easy. You search it, keyword search, and you find what you're looking for. So, whatever my end goal was at the time, let's say now if I wanted to be the, SVP of business innovation. I don't know. I just made up something.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you search it, and then you find a resume or a job description of the job that you really, really want. But what you do is you look at it. What's the criterias of the job? What's the education? What's the training? And depending on where you are, that's your strategic roadmap. You look
Hmm.
at that, and now you say, okay, I'm 5 years out, but now what's your goal for this year? You want to achieve X. The next year, I'm going to achieve this. And you're
Yeah.
basically creating this like clear path for yourself to the role that you want. Now,
Hmm.
strategically, we're talking about that step number one, but step number two, I think, is a mentorship. So
Hmm.
Misfits Unplugged, we're kind of your online mentors, right? Your
Yeah.
coaches.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling in something, or you're struggling in a specific area and you're like, I have no idea what does this mean, or how to get from this A to B, or what opportunities are out there, message us. You
Hmm.
can go to our website, misfitsunplugged.com, and you can send us a message there, or on Instagram, because we're very live and active. Both of us are on that account all day. So Instagram at Misfits Unplugged. So
Hmm.
BK, I'm going to throw it over to you, because we
Hmm.
kind of did this when we were starting our career. We were
We
building out.
did.
It also helped us with verbiage of how to
It's
take
true.
our skills and write them out on a resume.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I do this. She makes it sound so good.
Exactly. Yeah, we can go through that.
um, well, so I'm going to take it back to, with all of this, but even with the choices, you can choose to be accountable to yourself, and choose to decide, listen, I have these blind spots, I have, these destroyers, I have, some stuff around me that's keeping me from getting to the next level, and I can choose to, like Isabel said, reverse engineer, or create a plan around how to get there. And I think that that, to me, is the first step, because you can do all the research you want to do, but if you don't really have any skin in the game, and you haven't really decided that you even have choices and opportunities around you, then you're going to go in, circle. You're going to be a dog chasing its tail kind of thing. So, um, I like a good acronym. I think I wrote down here, it's funny because I write all the time and I'm just looking at one of the pads that I use, and I like a good acronym. It's acknowledge, accept, and admit. Acknowledge, accept, and admit that you need help and go about the job of getting the help that you need. And so, like Isabel said, whether that's a mentor, whether, you're not real clear about, how marketable anything that you're doing in your current job is, go online, go look at some profiles, go look at some resumes, figure out what it is that you want to do with your life, and, do what you can to get there one step at a time. And don't put too much pressure on yourself either. Like, make realistic goals. Eventually, Isabella and I are working on our SMASH goals, which will be the appendage to the ABCDs, which will kind of walk you through some exercises on how to start putting some of these concepts into some workable models for you. But keep it simple, keep it realistic. If you know that you need to go and get a certificate, if you know you need to up your game in technology, if you know that you just don't know how to get there, ask somebody in the know, make friends, even if you're an introvert. Like, I'm good at that. Even like, I'll reach out to somebody in a minute, like, talk to me like a baby on this, because I really don't know what I'm doing here, kind of thing. So
You know that I
yeah.
am, because the world is like burning around me. I bring in my inner circle, right? And I'm doing a call, and I'm calling my inner circle, and I'm asking questions like, what we just did that this week.
Yeah.
We're trying to buy a house, and I was like, I have a big decision. And
Yeah.
I call my girlfriends, the inner circle, Brandy and some other folks. And I'm like, okay, here's the situation. What should I do? And Brandy, why don't you drop those 3 A's again so that everybody can write these down?
The A's are acknowledge, accept, and admit. Acknowledge, accept, and admit
And I think the
that you need
fourth
help.
A is accountability
Accountability.
partners.
There you go. There
So
you
I think
go.
that what just was born was probably the 4 A's, and we're going to create a 4A blueprint
There
on
you go.
how to be successful in your career. So
Career. Yeah, that's
we
good.
have the ABC guide, which is the foundational course about brain dumping. We have the SMASH
Mm-hmm.
goals that are coming out, which is going to take you through goal setting. And it looks like
Mm-hmm.
these 4A blueprint that we're going to come out with is going to help them on how to actually start taking all of this projects and all of this ideas that they're creating, and like creating that roadmap, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
take them there. This is a beautiful thing. You guys
Yeah, it's
are
gonna
just a
be
part of
awesome.
it.
It's gonna be awesome.
All right. So last but not least, destroyers. What's
Mm-hmm.
holding you back? I mean, I think this is
Mm-hmm.
everybody starts off with the negatives, right? When you say, give me 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses, they always start with 3 weaknesses versus strengths, or you always start at the
Yeah.
negative. So I think this one is the one that people have a laundry list. So
Mm-hmm.
first off, cut that list in half, because it's not,
Yeah.
like, it's not. You're good at a lot more than you think you are.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
we talked about, me specifically, a lack of focus and burnout, because I take
Mm-hmm.
on more than I can chew sometimes, or I take on too much and I'm burning from both ends. And sometimes that, I'll lose focus or procrastination because I have too much on my plate.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I say that is, obviously I'm over ambitious and I want to help everyone and I want to be a part of the team and the bigger picture, and a
Mm-hmm.
collaborator is how I would say that in an interview. But I would be honest, sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
take on, and this one actually I hear a lot in interviews.
Mm-hmm.
People will say they take on more, they sometimes they say yes too much. So, but they'll
Yeah.
say it as, I want to contribute and I want to help the team. So me saying yes
Mm-hmm.
is a negative thing, but the the destroyer in this situation is the burnout, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes just not meeting deadlines and certain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So just stay focused. I would make sure in your interview, when you're talking about your marketable skill sets, you take that over, saying yes too much,
Mm-hmm.
or the burnout, and say instead, I like contributing to the team or the company's success. I enjoy working on projects. What I need to focus more on is how much I say yes to, or how much I commit to when I say yes. So yes, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to help you with that project, but I can't start this project until this date. Or,
Yeah.
so instead of saying, hey, no, I'm going to start saying no to people, because then it's like, oh, well, you're only looking out for yourself. Say, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say yes, but maybe in 6 months. But if it has to be done now, then unfortunately I can't take that on, because I need to focus on this, unless that is more important for the business need. So
Mm-hmm.
you can do as a destroyer.
That's a really good one too. And it's one that I think that anybody who um, moves up in position, the more you move up, the more you tend to get, the bigger problems, the more you get, the bigger projects. And so one of the things that you will definitely deal with is having a bunch of balls in the air and trying to figure out how to organize it all and time manage and all that good stuff. So that's always a good thing to keep in mind if you're not there yet, or if you're already a manager, then you probably already know. But I think I talked last time a little bit about my destroyer, which was procrastination. Um, and I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm a procrastinator I'm probably more of a procrastinator in my personal life than I really am in my business life, to be honest. But I think that Isabel mentioned the last time, that sometimes that procrastination comes because you have so many balls in the air, because you're feeling kind of overwhelmed with everything that you got going on. So I like the idea of stepping back and really kind of figuring out how much of this has to happen today. What all you have going on, and really, setting up some, time management infrastructure around yourself. Like, I'm definitely a list person. I wake up every single day. Whatever I didn't get finished the day before, I'm, throwing that on a list the next day. And then, I have the kind of job where fires could come at any given day. So I do leave myself room throughout the day to handle those types of things. And I organize my day in a way that allows me to do deep work, like all that introversion and analytics that I say that I actually enjoy. And then, leave myself some space for, whatever else could be going on around me. So that's how I end up getting over that procrastination hump, just organizing I'm a super, super duper organizer of time.
So how would you tell that to an employer? So instead of saying you're a procrastinator, how would you word that as a skill?
I think it starts with, like you said, I'm the kind of person that, tends to like to take on projects. And I know that I have a lot of balls in the air. And one of the things that I'm really good at is time management. I mean, time management is for me the remedy to procrastination, because when you start to uh, um, narrow things down or take them down into bite-sized chunks, opposed to getting super overwhelmed with all of these major things that you feel like you have to do in goal kind of thing. I would definitely tell an employer that I'm really good at time management. I'm good at looking at my day, looking at projects, looking at problems that need to be solved and putting them in their perspective bucket.
Yeah. So as a hiring manager, what I hear you saying is you stay organized and you have project management deadlines to keep you focused so that
Mm-hmm.
procrastination or distraction doesn't come up. You say, I'm going to come in on Monday. I know I'm going to focus on Monday, versus when you're like, I have 2-3 hours free today. What am I going to do? And then you binge watch Love Island for, you know,
I wish.
Love on Hip Hop. So that's what I hear you saying, which makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. I'm similar. We have a CRM that I use that keeps me focused each day on what to work on. What's my workload when I walk in the morning? And I
Mm-hmm.
know what projects I'm going to work on or initiatives. And then if
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time, I'm moving the needle and coordinating of what's.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very strong skill set. And it's how you made procrastination sounds like alluring.
Thanks. I try.
So we said we were going to show you how to make our ABCDs into marketable assets. We hope that we showed you how to rethink and refocus. And
Mm-hmm.
so next time you join us, we're going to walk you through 5 to 10 year plan and how we did planning when we first came together versus our 5 to 10 year plan now. And
Mm-hmm.
so we hope that you show up with a pen and paper as always and write
Yes.
down what is your 5 to 10 year plan and what are you trying to accomplish or where are you stuck, because as
Yeah.
you're listening to us, we want those gears to be moving so that
Mm-hmm.
you are focused on what your next step are. So Brandy,
Yep.
let's bring it home.
Take it out. Well, first of all, everybody, we want to thank you for listening to us today, our third episode. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, share it if you like it, because it gets us into the algorithm. We want you to like it, but we also want you to share it. And visit us on our website, www.misfitsunplugged. That ABCDs guide that we keep talking about is a free guide that if you throw your email address into the website, you get it free and quick.
So we're on Instagram as Misfits Unplugged, Twitter as M as in Misfits, underscore unplugged. But if you go right onto our website, www.misfits.com, you can link to all of our social media platforms. This podcast is available video as well. So if you go onto YouTube, you'll be able to see us. So until then, we'll be dropping knowledge bombs on a daily basis on Instagram. Let's stay connected and build this community of misfits. Thank you guys.
Hey, bye.
Bye.